Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of the viewers from around the world. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of JForex Indicators Explained, we will be looking at the uses, the properties, the concept of the indicator Chaikin volatility. This is the indicator which works very much like the ATR, which we saw in the last session. There is also a measure of volatility. It tries to see if the price momentum is strong or not, or even if it is simply going sideways, it tries to measure the relative range. So we get a good idea if there is likely to be a bigger range or a smaller range depending on the volatility indicators output value. We can draw an inference, and accordingly we can define our entry and exit points to make sure that we have higher probability of making money than losing money. So let us now head to the JForex4, the newly released trading platform from the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the Euro USD chart drawn on the hourly time frame. The concept of Chaikin volatility is simple. It takes into consideration the difference between high and low, and after that it takes out the moving average of that. So we have this indicator which is simply derived using the difference between these extreme values, and that's the only part in which it is different compared to other moving averages. In terms of the other moving averages, we simply take in the applied price, which is a singular price. We don't really consider the difference, but for calculation of this indicator, we take into account the difference, and as a result of that, we get a fairly good idea of the range for the indicator. So let us now add it, Chaikin volatility. Okay, here it is. Oh, let me see where it is. Okay, all right. So we have it, and this is being drawn using the 10 calculation period as the default setup. We are using this last 10 candlestick period of candlestick data. So obviously, this chart being of hourly candle period, we are using last 10 hours of data to figure out the range. And if we consider this output value, as you can notice that earlier we had this volatility when this range was getting narrow in a subdued territory, and after that it jumped. Now here the volatility indicator is on the higher side. Prior to that also, when we had this extreme volatility, we saw this indicator value jumping sharply, and then it went into a consolidation phase. So as a result of that, the output value of the Chaikin volatility started to stabilize. So that's how this indicator more or less works, and it gives you a good idea if the momentum is strong or not. You can't really use it for figuring out the direction. That is not the main purpose of the indicator. The purpose of the indicator is to see if there is good enough momentum or not. Whether it is on the bullish side or the bearish side, it doesn't really matter. All it wants to know is how much volatility is there in relative terms. If there has been strong volatility, and after that if we see the underlying instrument entering into a consolidation phase, then the volatility indicator will drop, because earlier it was pretty high, and now in relative terms there is not much of volatility, even if it is higher if compared to the historical levels. So that is something which we have to keep in mind, and accordingly we have to devise the system. The simple interpretation of this indicator is, as I said, is to simply figure out these volatility. So there are some ways in which you can try to utilize this. When the volatility is low, and after that if it starts to rise, whenever the output value starts to rise, and it should be rising significantly enough, so in that case then you can start to look for the new trading opportunities instead of going for a trade when there is subdued momentum. You can go for the trade when you see the momentum has picked up, and the inverted version of that is natural. You can see that when it has already reached extreme values, extreme volatility points, after that, of course, it is going to change course, and as and when it starts to consolidate, you can go for scalping kind of opportunities. So both ways you can utilize this indicator. There is a multi-use indicator. You can draw various types of inferences which you feel are likely to work. But of course, as is the case with any indicator, there is not a short solution to any of the problem. It will work. Sometimes it won't work some other times. So that is something which we do have to keep in mind. And then accordingly, we have to devise our strategy to work with it. So for Euro USD, in today's session, we saw this increased volatility, and after that, this stabilization happened. So as a result of that, this Chaikin volatility is now starting to drop. So you can draw a simple conclusion that this might be the time to start looking for scalping opportunities unless there is any significant move on the lower side, deviation strong enough to warrant the further change of course. Till then, you can pretty much be assured of a limited range for these underlying instrument and try to profit from these little moves wherever these little moves happen. You can start try to profit from it in terms of going for scalping trades. And if we see this subdued momentum now starting to give way to a fresh trend, then using other directional indicators, for example the SMA or any other indicator of your choice, in whichever direction the breakout happens, the momentum starts to pick up. You can pair it with this rising Chaikin volatility indicator and go for the trade in the same direction. And as and when it is again, if it is again falling back into the consolidation phase, this volatility indicator will drop. So giving you a good idea of simply staying away, if not much. All you have to do is simply sit on the sidelines till the momentum picks up again. So that way also you can rely on this indicator to give you good opportunities to work with. All right. Now let us consider what are the customization tools available to us on this platform. So we can work with this indicator in a manner which is likely to bring us good amount of profit. High, low, average periods. So you have to figure out the range for these candle periods. So whichever are the whatever is the calculation period, you have to figure out the range for it. So you take into account these high low difference and then average it out over this calculation period. So for that, you need to define this calculation period. The average is calculated accordingly. We have the default setup of 10 for this figuring out the range average, and for the rate of change period, again, you have to define it separately. So for both of these, you can keep the same values, or if you want to go in two different ways, you can keep these values separately as well. So it's always up to you. The flexibility is there. There is no well defined, or you can say set criterion which is going to work all the time. You have to figure it out on your own for your own system, what is going to work in a best possible manner. So for this, we have to try out different combination. So let us see if we increase it to 14, how things will shape up. Now the range period has been expanded to 14, but the rate of change calculation period is the same at 10. So as a result of that, there is a little bit more smoothing, but the difference is not that prominent really. But you can smoothen it further by simply enlarging this range. For that, you increase the calculation period, and as you can notice, I have increased it to 24. So we are taking into consideration the price volatility, the difference between high and low for last 24 candles of 1 hour each. So that's 24 hours worth of data to figure out these changes in the volatility, and as a result of that, we get this output value which is telling us that in last 24 hours this is the period where the volatility has been highest, and now it is subsiding, or it is simply entering into a consolidation phase. So that's how these things work out for you. All right, now let us change the rate of change also. So here we have now increased the rate of change as well. And as a result of that, the stabilization factor has increased. So unless and until there is any significant move, a rather significant move, we are not really going to see any sharp move in this output value. Only when there is significant move of very large kind, only in that kind of scenario we will have these sharp jumps. As most of the time, these output value will tend to rise or decline quite slowly. So here now we are seeing it on the higher side, but it is not that high compared to what it was. So it is telling you in relative terms that the volatility is of course high, but it is not that much high. And what it was earlier, even it is lower than that. So you get a good idea of these relative volatility and how to go around with it while making the trading choices. All right. So now again, I'm going to restore it back to default 10. Output, you can go for different kinds of color combinations. So all the color combinations are there. All you have to do is figure out which kind of color combination you want to work with, and that's all. You have to select it. You can increase or decrease the lines width as well, the output values width. If you want to make this line less prominent, but still to be quite recognizable, you can go for lower transparency option as well. So all these options are there to make your trading as profitable as possible with all these tools at your disposal. You can draw the inference, right kind of inference from the price dynamics data, and then take your trades accordingly while keeping all these possibilities in mind. Levels, if you want to add any level, you can add it. Simply level like 0 can also be added. But this is an unbounded indicator. You can't really define certain levels. You always have to work with it in relative terms. See what kind of volatility has been there in recent times and even in historical perspective. And then accordingly, you have to figure out the current volatility situation and then take the trades. All right. Levels. Now I am going to remove it. Coming to the advanced editing option, if you want to make sure that this output value for the current candle period remain constant throughout the current candle, then you have to opt for this option, recalculate on new candle only. Else it will keep varying depending on the applied price. Highlight the time period zone if you want the time period zone to be highlighted. You have to go for this option. So whatever is your calculation period, it will be highlighted. Calculate from custom data. You can customize the calculation further. Instrument can be used from the chart, so whichever instrument you are using for figuring out the trading opportunities, that instrument can have this indicator. So whenever you change the instrument to any currency, commodity, stock, index, any of the instrument as per your choice, you can rely on this indicator to give you a good idea of the prevalent volatility. Coming to the advanced editing option back again, we also get the option to customize this calculation period as well, candle period as well. So you can use it from the chart. So whatever is the candle period of the chart, the indicator is going to be calculated accordingly, but you can keep it fixed as well. So if the chart is of 15 hourly candle period, but the calculation you need is of 15 minutes each, then you can define it accordingly, and each calculation period, each candle period for the calculation period will be of 15 minutes irrespective of what is the chart's candle period. So this is the difference. Now I'm going to restore it back. Spread, side, ask or bid, you always get these two options, and there will be slight difference, but directionally speaking it will be on the same side. If you want the indicator to be available on all the candle periods, you have to opt in for this option. Else, you have to specify on which candle period you want this indicator to be available, and only on that candle period this indicator will be available. So you have to choose the best possible combination and then work with it to make sure that things are in line with the expectation, and you are having a best possible setup to work with. So guys, that's all from my side for today's session. If any of you have any query or any idea to share, you can write back to me in the feedback section, and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. For further coverage of the market developments, do check out the Dukascopy Analytics page. We are also available on the Facebook. You can reach out to us there too for trying out these indicators and many more options. I have also included the link in the bio for these newly released trading platforms. So give it a try and let me know how it works out for you. That's all from my side for today's session. I will be back tomorrow with a new indicator, new formation, new combination. So do come back. Thank you all for joining in. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.